Man, it's the one only DJ Chase, the pregame party Minutes podcast, right here on WDJCDB DJ Chase Radio. This episode is brought to you by the College Radio Directory. Get in touch with college radio stations. Use the promo code DJ Chase and Groover, the hottest platform that allows you to get in touch with labels, players, curators, to review your music content and get real feedback from people like myself, not bots. And today we have legendary entertainment attorney, my guy, DJ, special friend. Barry Heyman on today, owner of Heyman Law Firm in New York City. How you doing today, Barry?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm good and good, enjoying this southern living down here. So,
Yeah. All right. Looks a little
yeah,
brighter down there.
a little brighter. Actually, it's funny. It's actually raining today. Funny,
Oh, all
funny.
right. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So, today, I want to get into your background a little bit first. So, I want to talk about your background. So, you're from New Jersey, correct?
That's correct. Yep. Not far from the city.
Got you. And how was it growing up in New Jersey for you? Being a little different from the city.
It was good. I mean, it was suburban life style. It was pretty cool. I grew up with a diverse friends, all different backgrounds. Got into music fairly young, and was also, like I mentioned, close to the city. So as I got older, I started stepping into clubs and nightlife, and
Yeah,
eventually made my way into the city.
yeah. Got
So,
you. Yeah, for sure. And what part of Jersey you from?
uh, from Union, it's not
Yeah.
far from Newark.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And did you have like both your parents growing up, or was it just like a struggle with your, or just your mom, or just that?
Typical
Yeah,
divorce. So I grew
yeah.
up with my mom, visiting my dad,
Hmm.
and so yeah, he eventually moved down towards South Jersey.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
like I said, I always ask that in the sense of, sometimes as musicians and music people, we always use those, I guess, like life experiences to gear us into music or entertainment. So what made you want to become a music attorney?
I would say it was something very gradual. It was something I didn't really have in
Hmm.
my mind at all until it just kind of it felt like it presented itself over time.
Hmm.
I'll say that I definitely had an interest in music. Both speaking of parents, both my parents did play and have an interest in music. We had a piano in the house growing up,
Hmm.
and my dad played clarinet, and so they definitely were both fond of music, and so it just kind of gravitated toward that as
Hmm.
we, and so I will, and then you have to make these choices when you go to college. Like, what do you want to major in? And I'm like, I don't know. Like,
Uh,
and my mom's like, how about accounting? You're good at math. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And and then my piano teacher that I had taken lesson with over the years said, hey, there's a music business program at NYU
mm,
that he was involved with, and he recommended I apply. And I was like, wow, there's a music business. And then so I eventually went into music business from getting a degree in music business, and I started at a record label. And
oh,
then
okay.
you have internships, and you're like
Yeah.
A&R. A&R sounds fun. You're critiquing music as you're doing,
Mm,
and you were just mentioning. But I was like, I don't know about job stability. I mean, I should probably do some backroom operations where it's not glamorous and just have more job
yeah.
security because I didn't
Yeah.
know anyone. And
Yeah.
then as I kind of I wanted to learn more about contracts, and then that's when I started realizing, well, maybe
Yeah.
law school might be a good thing to have. And truthfully, even when I
Mm,
attended law school, I didn't even think I would be a lawyer. I was like, I don't even want to be a lawyer. I just want to be a manager of
oh
musicians.
wow,
And
okay.
I'm gonna have the law degree in my back pocket. I'll fall back on it. So
Yeah,
it was
for
not
sure.
so it would, some people, they're like, when they're kids, they saw Law and Order and they're like, I had to be a lawyer. That wasn't me.
Yeah.
And then they were like, how did you get into music law? I was like, well, I'm more of a music business professional
Hmm.
that found my way into law
Yeah.
versus being a lawyer that found my way into music business.
Oh wow,
You
okay.
know what I mean?
Copy. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So it was a little bit like,
Yeah.
so that's, and I've expanded my practice ever,
Hmm.
having been on my own for some time. but you know, the roots of my background in
Yeah.
law is definitely the music business.
For sure. Oh, so that makes sense. And okay,
Hmm.
so I want to break this down because it's gonna lead into a whole bunch of stuff, right? So now,
Yeah.
when you landed, I guess in like the golden age, as they say, you landed out,
Mhm.
started doing sample clearances for Def Jam and Mercury, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Mm,
So that was really cool. When an opportunity first arose to get a job in the industry,
mm,
um, they were like, the company I was with, Polygram, which is now Universal,
mm.
they were like, we just bought or have an interest in Def Jam. And I'm like, Def Jam? I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah, yeah,
amazing. They're like,
yeah,
and a job opened up to work in songwriting, in licensing and paying royalties to songwriters.
yeah. Mm.
And some of that involved dealing with samples. Now they did have a full-time sample licensing person who I believe might even still be there. Was like a legend.
Wow.
And so we did collaborate on a lot of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I did help out when
Mm.
because that's when at that time, sampling was like kind of like people were doing it, artists were
Yeah.
doing it, and it wasn't like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Like we
Mm.
need clearances. It was kind of like they were doing it as an afterthought.
Mm.
That, labels were dealing with it. Like I
Mm.
mean, De La Soul just put out their seminal album,
Mm.
fully cleared
Yeah.
just this past year.
Yeah.
Beastie Boys albums, I don't know how they ever cleared all those samples, if they ever cleared all those samples. So
Yeah.
nowadays, there's procedures and things are,
Mm.
there's processes. There's still sampling issues, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's how I got my foot in the door. I mean, I grew up on hip hop and dance music, so
Yeah.
having an opportunity to collaborate and work
Yeah.
with Def Jam was really
Yeah.
amazing
For
opportunity.
for sure, and I do want to ask this, right? So now we're going to talk into we're going to talk about the meat and potatoes of this, right? So everybody
Yeah.
always wants to know. There's so much horrible information on YouTube, and okay, so we're going to do a sample clearing first, right? So a lot of people come to me. You give it a short answer. I know you can talk about it all day.
Oh
So
yeah.
with that being said, right, is it better to okay, I'm gonna ask this like this. So is it better to get a sample lawyer to do it, a sample clearance company, or should an artist or can an artist do it like through Harry Fox content contacting the songwriter or the publisher directly?
Mm. All three are answers that they can proceed with. They can do
Okay.
it either way. The artist can take it upon themselves.
Mm,
That might be a little tricky unless they really know what they're talking about.
mm,
Um, they can also work potentially with a manager, but
mm,
probably want to work with the lawyer.
yeah.
And like you said, the third option, what they call a sample clearance company,
Mm,
that's what they do day in and day out. I can do sample clearances,
mm,
but I think sample clearance companies have the fresh contacts, know
mm,
who's where, know the latest, um, maybe the dollars to negotiate,
mm.
have a regular rapport.
Okay.
Um, and so I would think maybe a sample, I would probably, even if I could do it on my own, might, if you have, you got to save up, because
Yes,
you might not
sir.
even get the clearances and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
sample clearance companies might be the best option.
Best option. Okay. And now, there's a lot of myths. So we want to break some myths today. There's two myths I want
Okay.
to break. So the first one is that a cover song is covered by your distributor, and a sample you got to clear it on your own. And that's what's the difference between the two, a cover song and a sample clearance.
Oh, so a cover song is when you perform the whole song, basically the
Mm-hmm.
melody and lyrics, but you're not actually using any of the actual original recording,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you want to do "Kiss" by Prince, um, you wouldn't be going in there to his
Mm-hmm.
recordings and sampling any bass lines or his voice or anything.
Yeah.
And you also wouldn't be using part of the song, you'd be
Mm.
using the whole song. And so you can change the style of the song. That's part of what you're allowed to do as a cover song without
Mm-hmm.
um, modifying it, or what they call making a derivative work of
Okay.
the original work. So you can make a bluegrass version of it, as an example. I just made that up. A
Yeah.
blues version,
Yeah.
I guess to some degree a hip hop version, and as long as you don't change the lyrics and you don't change the melody or the fundamental
Hmm.
structure of the song, that would be considered a cover song. And then if you do a cover song, that's when you start to use places like potentially Harry Fox Agency,
Okay.
especially if you're going to drop it as like a physical record, like a vinyl record.
Hmm.
And so long as his publishing company uses Harry Fox, and you can get a mechanical license
Okay.
to reproduce the song and make a
Yeah.
cover of it. If you're sampling only like half of the song or a lyric
Hmm.
of it or just like some snippet, sampling gets into, are you replaying it?
Hmm.
Like, the song, like, are you going in the studio and replaying it
Now
where it
hold
kind
on.
of sounds like it?
Now hold on. That's the
Or
second.
are
Okay.
you
Hold on.
actually sampling it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sampling is
Yeah.
actually using, and when you
Yeah.
sample,
Okay.
you got to clear to the sample, the
Yes.
recording itself, and the composition.
Okay.
So
So
sorry,
that's my next.
I got
No, no,
ahead of
no,
ourselves.
no, 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 no. That's perfect because that leads into the next question. So with that
Yeah.
being said, another myth. The last one I want to break is the 2 second rule. If you got the 2 second loop or the
All right.
replaying it, so you have to.
Yeah.
So you have to. So anytime you use any piece of a song or sample, you have to pay for it. Correct?
No.
Okay.
That is the rule, and that would normally be my knee-jerk reaction if I had a client. And by the way, you should put the disclaimer in the front. This is not legal advice on this video.
Oh, I got you.
Right? And to seek a qualified lawyer,
Oh no, I got
right?
you. I got
All
you.
right, cool. So whoever's listening to this, because there's lots of nuances in this area,
Yeah,
and it's all very fact specific.
I got
And
you.
not only that, but what I might think and what another lawyer might think on the same matter might
Yeah.
be different answers
Oh
too.
no, for sure, for sure.
And
But,
so, you know what I mean? It's like that's what's
yeah,
frustrating about it. It's not necessarily black and white. It's gray
yeah,
areas. So, but the point is that there is no necessarily 2 second, 4 bars, eight
yeah,
bars, 15 seconds, 8 seconds, and then you automatically can use it
yeah.
scenario.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Okay. So with that being said, I'll give you an example. There was a famous case, and I think it's still good law, the Beastie Boys case where they call it the flute loop
Mm.
sample.
Hmm.
And they took like a jazz record and they looped the actual sound recording
Oh, okay.
from the jazz record.
Hmm.
And they repeated it over and over. It's a cool track, of course.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course. Sounds cool. And what they did was they actually got clearance from the sound recording company, the record
Mm.
label.
Oh, nice.
So they're like, okay, cool. But remember, there's 2 copyrights associated with a sample typically. The
Okay.
sound recording,
And it,
whoever,
mhm.
and then whoever wrote it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, like Prince, Sinead O'Connor, she did like,
Hmm.
she covered one of his songs,
Hmm.
that, her famous song is his song. So if you sample
Yeah.
Sinead O'Connor,
Yeah.
you got to get clearances from the sound record company that owns the sound record. Then you got to
Yeah.
go to Prince, his publishing
Woo.
company, and get
It's a
clearance,
lot.
right? So
Yeah.
when the flute loop, they got clearance from the record company. Now it's like, who wrote it? Me and you could have written it, but right, we
Yeah.
didn't. But so
Yeah.
the publisher is like, you didn't get clearance from us. We're the publisher of the song. Obviously,
Yeah.
you acknowledge that you sampled the sound recording.
Yeah.
Well, we represent the songwriters of that song, and
Mm.
they're like, no, we only took like the 3 bars, like it's just 3 notes.
Yeah.
So to your point, like they're kind of going through this, like we
Hmm.
use such a minimal amount,
Yeah.
like that we don't need clearance. They're like, yeah, but you got clearance on the sound recording side. So they sued. The publisher lost. They analyzed it and they said it's only 3 like regular like 3 notes, do 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 do, and then it like it repeats over and over. And they're like, you don't need clearance for that. So the case was decided that you need a clearance from the sound recording company
Yeah.
because automatically it's typically once you use a sound recording that's in
Yeah.
copyright, the default is that you need clearances. I think there was the other famous case is a what's his I'm spacing. I'll remember it where
No,
the
you
court
good.
said that
Yeah.
Bismarck
With Marquis. Hmm.
there's a case with him and the court the first line out of it it's they quote like the Bible thou shalt not steal. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so basically that was
Yeah.
so on the sound recording side it's a lot more if you're sampling
Mm.
that which leads us if you're interpolating. Like
Yeah.
if they had gone in the studio
Yeah.
and had hired a flute player
They wouldn't have to
and
pay
paid him
for
like
it.
pay a few $100,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And then they wouldn't have had to go to the major record label and get a
Yeah.
clearance and pay all that. They would have paid them a few $100, do a work for hire, we own it outright, blah blah blah, no royalties, residual royalties,
Awesome. Okay,
right?
gotcha.
And then on the publishing side, they could have argued the same thing that they did argue,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't have had to pay any of the original because they replayed it. That's
Gotcha.
interpolation. You
Okay.
know, there's a guy luxury with two X's on Instagram, and he
Mhm.
goes through this whole. That's all he does is like interpolations. And so luxury,
Yeah.
Luxury.
Yeah.
You'll shout out to that. So
Yeah,
you know
for sure, for
you can
sure.
people can dive into that area.
Yeah, listen, I get a lot of people that come to me for music education. That's what my show is for. So, I want to
Cool.
ask this
Yeah.
question. Yeah, today. Now, a lot of the artists are also, our labels, excuse me, are suing. As you see, in a big TikTok artist, he got sued for 800 grand by Universal for using a sample pack. Do you feel like labels should
Mm.
target smaller artists for samples? They're getting more, penny pinching a little bit.
Well, that sort of thing comes up here and again,
Yeah.
within the industry in various ways. The idea here, I think, is maybe they have the right. Truthfully, I don't know if I know that particular case,
Hmm.
and or have thoughts on the legalities of
Hmm.
that. But let's say, assuming, and probably maybe is the case that whatever Universal is claiming is
Hmm.
true, and
Hmm.
meaning like they have a colorable claim. I doubt they would be going to a small artist
Hmm.
asking for so much if they didn't think, because at the end of the day, it might be that they have the legal right,
Hmm.
but usually you target bigger companies with deeper pockets and more
Yeah.
corporate.
Yeah.
The idea being that when you have the small person, it's not a good PR look, like
Mm.
public relations look. It's like
Mm.
it never looks good when that
Mm.
happened. A
Yeah.
couple of times that come to mind, or when like Napster came out, the
Mhm.
original. It's still around in a new iteration, which is more like the legitimate Napster. But
Mhm.
back, 20 something years ago, when it first came out, they were trying to like
Yeah,
squash it
everybody.
wherever
Yeah,
they could.
everybody. Yeah.
And then they started suing like the homeowner, like the owner of
Yeah.
the web, whatever the
The
IP
old
addresses,
grandmother. Yeah, the
and
old grandmother.
you heard
I mean,
about it,
yeah,
right?
the old
And it was
grandmother.
it was like that because the grandson's upstairs in the bedroom downloading, and
Yeah.
so it was never really the best PR. See, that's something that
Yeah.
sticks. You don't remember. So
Yeah.
it became they're always having to switch gears, and then they were trying to like just maybe we should educate the kids
Mhm.
in the school system about the importance of copyright
Okay.
and kind of work up there. And
Yeah.
there was another case where like ASCAP, the PRO, we
Mhm.
we talk about here and there, the public
Yeah.
rights
We
organization.
gonna talk about that. We gonna talk about that in a few.
All right. Oh, good. So just foreshadowing here. So
Yeah.
they at one point sued the Boy Scouts because
Mm.
they had said that, listen, you're publicly performing
Yeah.
songs around campfires
yeah.
like
That's a
Kumbaya or
public. That,
something
that,
like
that
that.
don't count. That don't
And you
count.
need and you yeah, that's what they're saying. They're
That
like,
don't
yeah, you
count,
need to
man.
they said so that was like one of them PR things where you're just like,
Yeah.
oh man. And
Yeah.
they do enforce their rights, and they have the right to, and they do go after, yoga studios and
Mhm.
cafes that think, oh, what are you talking? I'm just a little cafe in the middle of, you
Yeah.
know, you know, North Carolina in the middle of nowhere. No, I'm joking.
No, no, it
And
is.
so
Honestly, it is
but
for real, for real.
but I get these calls. I get family, that are
Yeah.
lawyers and friends of family, like,
Mhm.
we got an old age home and they're saying we got a letter from some PRO saying we're doing like birthday parties. We need to get this. Is this a scam letter? I'm like, no, it's really not. And so, but it's it's not always easy to know all
Yeah.
these nuances. So
For sure, for sure. And then one of my last questions on this topic of as far as like the
yeah.
production part, as far as using YouTube beats, do you feel like that's just like a dead end for artists that they should really stop doing it, or they should just like come up with more original compositions versus the YouTube
Mm.
beats?
Well, I mean, are YouTube beats like the same as like BeatStars, where there's like an arrangement? Like,
Not
or are you just like,
no, 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 just ripping it off.
snagging
No,
beats?
just ripping it off YouTube. Yeah, ripping it off
Yeah,
YouTube. Yeah,
no, I mean, as a lawyer, you can't really say, yeah, you
yeah,
should be doing that.
yeah,
I mean, if you're like doing it just to practice at home,
yeah.
or to
But
show
not
your
for
family
selling
or
it.
friends,
Yeah.
yeah, not for selling it, but not like a lot of people like, oh, I put it
Mhm.
on some website where I'm not even selling it. It's just available for people to download. that's not legit either because they're like,
Mm,
I'm making no money.
mm,
So I mean, but that's how some artists do get their that
mhm.
historically in a different format. That's how artists, I believe, like artists like 50 Cent, where they would do mixtapes,
Yeah.
and to do the actual clearances, and but you want to have familiar, and then not only that, but they would take like famous beats, like they would take
Yeah.
instrumentals of the
Yeah.
hottest, newest song at the
Yeah.
moment,
50 Cent was
just so you
crazy.
can just so like just so that, but
uh,
that was a different era, but that just so
yeah.
you can hear their flow and
Mhm.
their sound,
Yeah.
and to actually do the actual legal process. Now you're months later and that beats stale, that famous song, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot of, but I think, but so the alternative from just
Mhm.
taking a beat off of YouTube and using it without permission would be to actually get permission
Mm,
through through companies that offer like BeatStars or Splice,
mhm.
or ways there are, and lawful ways. There's even
Yeah.
a sample clearance,
Mhm.
where you can use samples pre-cleared without, it might not be exactly what you're looking for,
Mhm.
but there's a company. Um,
Yeah,
what's the
TrackLib.
name
I
of it?
use them. I TrackLib. I
Yeah,
use
yeah,
TrackLib.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
TrackLib. That's the one
exactly.
I use. Yeah, TrackLib is awesome.
So yeah, that would be the lawful way of doing it. So I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think you have to be creative. Like, I feel like you should be just smart and do it lawfully.
Yes, sir.
I'm no, yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
add
Yeah.
whatever you want to, but you don't have to start from scratch necessarily,
Yes,
especially in the
sir.
beginning.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. I appreciate that answer. And once again,
Hmm.
as Barry said, this is not legal advice. You should always contact an attorney. The disclaimer. So with that being
Yeah.
said, now a lot of people get confused about this, and I'm saying it in a certain way. So with sound exchange, so people always get thrown off. So I'm gonna ask this question: what's the difference between trademark and a copyright? The short answer.
Oh yeah. So that's a good one because I think that's good for artists, for everyone to know, especially creatives. I feel like it gives a barometer, especially for business people, but it gives a barometer, I think, to me, of like, does the artist even know what they're talking about?
Hmm.
Like how far off are they? I feel like I'm fine with it. I'm fine with just like, I'm not gonna like criticize them. I just want to educate them
Hmm.
because I want them to look professional to others.
Yes,
That's
sir.
like someone going to you and your craft and trade, and you know what you're talking about, and someone pretending that they do, or not, or having a miss, and you're like, okay, I'll help you, but it's not necessarily a good
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, a trademark to me is what I'm looking at on your head right now. Is like you got the hat with the NY logo,
Yes,
right?
sir.
That's a trademark. That's a logo.
Hmm.
So when I scan like around the room, because I do teach part time and I do teach trademarks, I look at like I'm looking at the Apple computer logos facing me. I'm seeing the Nike logo here,
Yeah.
right? And so when you relate that to the music industry, what does that have to do with it? That has
Yes,
to
sir.
do with like, Universal Records has their logo, or Island Records has a palm tree, or
Hmm.
they all these companies have their logos and their names.
Yes.
And then when you relate it to the artist itself, or band, or producer, they have their own name as well.
Yes, sir.
So those artists can protect their name, and they want to make sure that they're using a name of an artist name or a band name that's not being used by someone else. So that's a trademark.
Hmm.
Anything that identifies the source of that service being making beats or
Yes.
records, producing
Yes, sir.
services, or selling goods like T-shirts and hats and things like that. That's a trademark.
Hmm.
A copyright is anything that's kind of creative, that's like an authorship.
Hmm.
Within the music industry, that's typically writing a song. That's also recording a song, making
Yeah.
sound recordings. So within the music industry, the two main ones are songwriting and then also creating a sound recording. Also, but related to that, if you make a music video, now you're making a film, that's another copyright.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you're hiring choreography to do dance,
Yeah.
or if you're ripping off Beyonce's dance, you're violating
Yeah. I've
her
got
copyright.
copyright.
So that you got dance choreography as a
Yeah.
copyright, video, photography, artwork, all that. So now you're seeing how like copyrights are more like creative poems,
Yeah.
films, songs, recordings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got you. And with
that's
that being
so
said,
they're really kind of, yeah. They can.
yeah.
There's some overlap there, but that's the short answer as
Got you.
far as
Got you. No, I
short as I can
appreciate
make
it.
it. Yeah,
Once again, we
yeah,
going in today. We going in today. And then okay,
yeah.
so now on my another okay. So I want to ask this a certain way too. So with a lot of misnomers and miseducation is that once it's a trademark or a logo or a copyright is on a tangible medium is copyrighted. No, you have to actually copyright it with the government or trademark it with the government for it to be legit, correct?
Mm, good question. Uh,
The tangible medium as they say.
right. Yeah. So that is so no, you don't have to register a copyright, and no, you don't have to register a trademark with the government.
Okay.
But as a lawyer, and just as for people to know, there are benefits to doing so.
Hmm.
So you talk about tangible medium. The idea there with copyright is as long as it's original,
Hmm.
there's not a high threshold for originality,
Hmm.
and as long as it's you're the like meaning if I want do I own that, that's not
Hmm.
original, dude. You got to add a little bit more melody, right? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's so you got a little originality. I
Yeah.
have to be the author of it, meaning I can't find something off the, in nature or something like that. You have to
Hmm.
literally be the author,
Yeah.
got to come from you. That's where AI gets in,
We gonna talk
to this
about that.
with
That's no, that we gonna talk about
we
that.
keep foreshadow.
We
We
gonna
keep
talk about that. We
foreshadow.
gonna talk about
I
that.
had a
Yeah.
feeling once I opened my mouth and said AI, you were going to say that
It's coming.
because
It's coming. It's
I
coming.
see where we're going. We're going
Yeah.
down rabbit holes here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so then the third element besides human authorship, in addition to human authorship,
Mhm.
uh, originality, it needs to be in a tangible form, and that's where
Okay.
you mentioned. So that definitely made me think of it because you mentioned copyright tangible, meaning if I have a song in my head,
Mhm.
it's original. I have it, and I thought of it. You make a beat. It copies exactly what I was thinking,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dude, I own it. And you're like, no, you don't. You didn't put it in a tangible form.
Yeah.
And if you were recording that melody you just made that I made earlier,
Yeah.
you now have the third requirement, tangible form.
Got you.
Tangible form means you got to put either a sheet music, you got to record it into a device,
Yeah.
you got to do something to keep it. So those are the three requirements. Anything beyond that is
Yeah.
not required,
Okay.
but there's benefits to doing so. And that's registering with the US Copyright Office, the Library of Congress. And it's not a lot of money. It's like $65.
It's not a lot.
It's not terrible, and that really gives you more like a time date stamp. It's easier to
Hmm.
prove. It it's just a lot of benefits that come through
Hmm.
from registration. Trademark, same thing. You could use a name. You don't have to register to own it necessarily, but it
Hmm.
definitely puts public on notice that you're claiming it. If someone comes in after you, they're like, "Yo, that's a cool name. I'm going to use it." It adds the complications. So again,
Hmm.
there's a lot of reasons and benefits for and to be made. Trademarks are more expensive. They start at like 250 to 350. The
Yeah.
trademark fee, plus if you hire someone to help you out, their fee. Lawyers do that. There are trademark companies that do that as well.
Hmm.
You can do that on your own. I don't know if I recommend that. Same way, copyrights can be a little tricky, especially on the trademark side. But the point is, there are definitely benefits to doing
Yeah.
both. So
Yeah.
it's not like it's not legal if you don't do it. So just to
Yeah.
answer the real question, you can still have a lawful copyright and a
Yeah.
lawful trademark without using the government,
Hmm.
but definitely benefits. You go to copyright.gov, you can go to
Hmm.
uspto.gov, US Patent and Trademark Office.gov, uspto.gov, and
Hmm.
copyright.gov, and you'll see right on there, why should I register, circular one and the
Hmm.
copyright, and FAQs on the trademark website, and you'll start reading,
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
we could
sure. For
spend an
sure.
hour or two on that. Yeah.
And with that being
Next.
said, my last question on that on copyright, excuse me, is can you copyright a song with a sample, or do you just own the publishing?
No, you can own, depending on the terms that you come up with the original copyright owner on that sample,
Hmm.
you potentially could own the copyright in the new work as embodied within that.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
and you could mark on the copyright third party material too. So you
Hmm.
can exclude from it what's not owned by you.
Oh wow. Okay, you told me something that I
Yeah,
just learned that. Okay.
yeah, but it depends on the type of deal you strike with the original sample owner.
Hmm.
There are copyright participation deals and income participation deals on the sample side.
Okay.
So if it's on the income side, you might be able to claim full authorship actually. but that
Yeah.
would require a little bit of
No, that's just a simple.
thinking.
I like
Yeah,
the simple. Yeah, the simple answer. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Long story short, you can copyright a
But you
song with a
definitely
sample. Yeah.
can. Yeah, you can copyright a
Okay.
song with a sample. You might have to exclude the
Yeah.
part that's not owned by you,
Yeah.
but yeah, it doesn't mean that the original sample owner owns it and you can't claim other
Oh, nice.
aspects of it.
Okay.
Yeah, you could
Gotcha.
definitely claim other aspects of it too.
I
Yeah,
appreciate that. And now
yeah.
let's get into some metadata. We're gonna talk about some publishing. This is where it
Ah,
gets a little tricky.
okay.
So that's, all right. So with metadata, because sound exchange, is so complicated because they changed the way you do it. 'Cause before you had to do it on a spreadsheet, now they just do it on their website. So the three
Yeah.
important metadata codes are ISRC code, the ISWC code, and UPC code. Correct?
Those are they're part of the metadata. They're not the whole metadata, but yeah, they're
Okay.
basically the identity of
Hmm.
the project, either the album project or the sound recording or the composition. So
Mm.
it kind of helps to know with those unique numbers, like a
Hmm.
social security number
Yeah.
associated with the sound recording. Think of it like that. You have one, I have one, right? So,
Hmm.
but no one else here should have one, right?
Yeah.
Not the same numbers. I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone should potentially have one there, but the point is like that's like an ISRC for the sound recording.
Okay.
Like we were talking about, there's two copyrights. It all comes back to that. The songwriting too.
Hmm.
Whoever wrote the song has that. The UPC is more like kind of like the overall project, kind of
Okay.
like the album itself. Like the
Hmm.
UPC, kind of like I think about it like there's digital ones too, but there's like physical, like the back of the CD, that barcode,
Yes, sir.
like that. But that's not related to the actual sound recordings contained in
Hmm.
this on the CD or the
Yeah.
composition. That's
Yeah.
kind of like the overall product. Like
Yeah.
when you buy a book, the ISBN number. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yes, sir.
that's not related to the actual copyrights,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Yeah.
So, but they are important to definitely have for each project, especially if you're the sound recording owner, but or to know who the ISWC owner is.
Hmm.
It's just really systemizing,
Hmm.
numbers, international, so that everyone around the world is using the same type of system.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, yo, yeah, I'm the one that wrote the song, and recorded "I Love You." You're like,
Yeah.
dude, there's like 2,453 entries. Which
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, the one. If you got to look it up. Oh, do you have an ISRC? Yeah, I do. Oh, then I'll know what it is. One,
Gotcha.
2, 5, 8, 1, 2. I will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how it's easier to identify
Yeah.
versus going by just song title.
Yes,
Not the
sir.
best way to track down songs.
Yes, sir. And okay, so now we're gonna get into this. Songwriters and publishers, right? There's so much
Mm-hmm.
misinformation on this. An artist can only sign up with one PRO, which is Performance Rights Organization, ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. An artist or artist or publisher can only sign up with one. Because I was reading that a publisher can actually sign up with all three, but an artist can't. I mean, a songwriter can't. So what's the myth on that one?
Well, yeah, I don't know if it's a myth. It's just the idea. I mean, you pretty much said it. That writers,
Yeah.
if you're a songwriter, these organizations help songwriters to license and to collect royalties, for the public performances of their songs that they wrote.
Mhm.
And so the reason why you need their help is, and the reason why publishers need their help is because no publisher is going to be running around at every yoga studio and cafe knocking on their door to get those
Yeah.
licenses I was talking about earlier,
Yeah.
or Madison Square Garden, or
Yeah.
all these major venues around the country
Yes,
and
sir.
around the world too. But there's other PROs outside the U.S. But the point is, not only do they license to those venues, but they also license to television networks,
Mm.
ABC, NBC, Hulu, Netflix, right? That's a lot. Publishers can't do
Yeah.
that. The songwriter, go ahead, songwriter. You have those rights. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go knocking on every yoga studio, on every
Impossible.
tech. Impossible for publishers. And lastly, and most, important, not most important, but very importantly, is radio too. All
Mm.
the radio stations. So
Yeah.
they cut the deals to license your song because the law provides that you have the exclusive right to publicly perform the song you wrote.
Mhm.
So these radio stations, television networks, and venues need those rights. So they
Mhm.
can't go to the writer because it's impractical. And they can't go directly to the publisher. The publisher's like, this is impractical.
Yeah.
So they outsource it to a rights organization. And there are three competitors in the US, the three main ones anyway, for most writers, are ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC,
Yes, sir.
and you get to choose which one because they're not going to be scrambling to, oh, I did that song with that PRO, that one with that one, and those. So they're basically those are the three.
Yeah.
Two of which you can sign up with, one of which you need to be invited for. CSAC is invite only, and so you could potentially reach out, or they'll reach out to you to be invited to work with them.
Yes, sir.
Publishers, however, represent a stable of writers, right? They got a roster, and so you might be a writer with ASCAP, and someone else might be a writer with CSAC, and another one with BMI. So they have to, in theory, because they're registering the songs, they have to, with your PRO, they got to have an account to associate your works with theirs, because usually publishers actually get a piece of that type of royalty.
Yes, sir.
So they have to, in theory, be registered, unless they have one writer or all their writers are just registered with ASCAP. They don't have a need to register with BMI and CSAC. That's why publishers are registered typically with all the PROs, because their writers are basically aligned with all the PROs.
Yes, sir. And thank you for explaining that the correct way. And now, do you feel like an artist should administer their own works, or do you feel like an artist should get an outside publisher and administrator like CD Baby Pro, Song Trust, or TuneCore Publishing?
Yeah. So one of the things I like to work with my clients on is using the terminology, because it's not really the artist that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
It could have been, but the way you phrase it at the end with the publisher and the types of organizations you're mentioning, like Song Trust and CD, right? Those, you're talking about the songwriting side.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the songwriting side, they're not artists. They could be artists, but they're really songwriters.
Songwriters, yes.
So you should say, right? So that's the
no, you're correct. No, you're 100%. Yeah, you know what it is?
So,
you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. Yes.
So, and I know you know that, and I know that you know, but for those watching and listening, they might think I'm an artist, but I don't write songs, and then that doesn't really pertain to them. Or they might be a songwriter and not be an artist, and this is all they need to know. They don't need to work, right? So we're talking about songwriters. Right? So we're just, the artist may also be the songwriter. So we're on the songwriting hat. So where the artist might be a songwriter, or they're not an artist, they're just just an old-fashioned songwriter. Do I think? I mean, I think there's a lot they can do on their own. Depends on how knowledgeable they are.
Okay.
It gets trickier, I think, and administering is one thing, and another thing is what a publisher can offer, and some of these services can offer are like proactive licensing opportunities, like synchronization licensing, like getting songs in TV and film and advertising. And if they have that as part of their package, I mean, you can do that yourself too. I mean, do you know the people at ABC and NBC and Hulu and Netflix to have those conversations? You might not.
Yeah.
And then when you're dealing also with administering publishing rights outside the United States, it gets difficult, because you're collecting, and some of your rights organization like ASCAP BMI might be able to do that, but your mechanical royalties might be difficult to deal with outside the US. And so, I mean, I think probably unless you're really unless you're really gonna like study it, which is fine, and you're gonna want to do it on your own, it's possible, and you can keep that 10 or 20% administration fee that they would typically charge. But it gets more complicated when you're dealing with outside the United States. And they also add an extra value of licensing potentially for TV and film. They take a piece of it, but I mean, you might get 100% of $0 if you're don't have those relationships, and they might hit the jackpot and get you a $5,000, $10,000 song placement, and that could steamroll you to the.
All right, so hold on. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about it. We almost down. We almost down. We got a few. All right. So you hear a lot of major songwriters and producers. They on the internet, they always talk about they signed bad publishing deals when they were younger. What are some terms that artist, songwriter or publisher? No, I say a songwriter. Okay, what are some terms? What are some terms that a songwriter should look for when signing a publishing deal?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like anything else in life. I mean, we can do it for a variety of areas where we look back and be like, man, you know, what you can do now is different than what you did then, because where you were then,
Yeah.
you didn't have the leverage that you have now. So
Yeah.
you say, I signed a bad deal.
Yeah.
You signed a deal that you were able to get at the time. Now,
Yeah.
granted, you might have signed a bad deal because you didn't hire a lawyer or the right lawyer.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe you did sign a bad deal. Or maybe you just signed the best deal that you could have at the time under the
Yeah.
circumstances.
Yeah.
And now that your trajectory of your career really took off, in retrospect, you could have gotten $1 million, but you wouldn't have gotten $1 million then, or
Yeah.
200 grand up front.
Yeah.
So I feel like sometimes that gets muddled into the conversation, because I feel like, is it really truly a bad deal, or was it just like that was the best deal you could have gotten? So when you're in the beginning of a career, and well, one, you might be you pointed out a couple of administration companies that don't necessarily take ownership in copyrights.
Yes, sir.
And so they're really good for like kind of helping, making sure like things are, or should be making things are in order. Like all your songs are registered with the rights organizations and the MLC and right. And they can help kind of keep the boat afloat.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe get you a sync. That'd be great. And then as your career takes off and you have more leverage, maybe you would, I remember one of my smart clients, he said, I want to strike when the iron's hot, meaning we're going to hang low.
Yeah.
Things are heating up.
Yeah.
With his song, but if he can get one more, or something else flowing, the numbers started to change.
Yeah.
The leverage that we had started to get more favorable to our direction.
Yeah.
And so we struck when the iron was hot. So if you can do that, what that means is that you're getting the most that you can out of the deal. You gotta, you're not going to you don't want to necessarily push the publisher off the edge where they got to make a deal too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Both parties got to hurt a little bit.
Yes,
but
sir.
At the end of the day, as long as you can, if you are going to do a deal and you can't strike when the iron's hot, and these companies are going to take a piece of your publishing ownership, if that's the case, at the time there were less administration companies, and now there are a lot more that are easy to work with without them owning copyright.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like do a bad deal necessarily. You can get out of a lot of these deals fairly easily. And then or at least work with new catalog or content moving forward at the very least. But if you do strike a deal with a publisher and they do pay money, up front, you might want to at least hire a lawyer that can help guide you through like those, to try to minimize the damage, the long-term damage.
Yes, sir.
Meaning like maybe you can, get your rights back, but it's not a perpetual right that you grant to them. Maybe it's not 100% of the publishing and the songwriting that you get ownership. And then maybe also it's not for catalogs of songs to come down the line. Maybe it's limited to a certain identifiable number of songs, 5 or 10, or the next 5 or 10, but not like for like an open, bucket of songs that are like you're never going to be able to get that money, the songs back, because you're never going to recoup the advance. So there are things in place that can be very frustrating down the line. You want to minimize that frustration down the line.
Got you.
And,
I appreciate that.
And analyze it strategically if you can, with a lawyer up front, or just have like some insight.
For sure. And then because that led to that segue right into it. So my last question is like record label advances. So you get everybody wants the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So you've seen it from the 90s till now, when they were giving gazillion dollars in the 90s till now. Do you feel like right now is even worth it for an artist taking an advance from a record label with so much opportunities, companies like Beat Bread or song royalties? Do you feel like it's actually worth it for artists to take a advance right now from a record company, not a publisher?
Right. So now we're on the sound recording copyright side.
Yes,
sir.
The
artist.
Yeah.
Right. So they're typically in the sound recording business. Sometimes their deals will try to get a piece of the songwriting side, but nonetheless, I hear where you're coming from, and definitely the deals are different. I mean, I think there's a lot more options these days, which I think is great, because the artist can kind of navigate their own career. But what that presents is like almost like, which direction should I go? Which option should I take?
Yeah.
I feel like, to your point, there are a lot less of those 7-figure advances and things like that, you can potentially work with companies that can give you like advances against your incoming royalty stream. I think you were
Hmm.
referring to.
Yeah.
So you can get the upfront money that you might need
Hmm.
without necessarily like transferring over copyrights or having. I don't. I think it's a case by case basis.
Gotcha. Okay.
I feel like some artists don't want to take the big advances because, like, sometimes even on the publishing side, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
you were offered 300 grand, and then the publisher and then my client's like, well, can we get 500? And the publisher's like, yeah, we'll give you 500. We're just going to change the percentages more
Hmm.
favorable to us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so it's like how
Yeah.
much you need. And so if it doesn't become like we're fighting over dollars
Yeah.
because they're like 700 grand, you want that? We're going to take. So
Yeah.
in that deal, I'm thinking about my client said, I want 90-10 in my favor.
Mm.
And they're like, well, we're not going to give you an advance. He's like, I already got enough money from that other deal I cut with you on another deal, so I don't need the advance. I want
Yeah.
to own my copyright.
Yeah.
So it really becomes like,
Okay.
negotiating whatever is the right fit, what you need. Do you need the money? Do you not
Yeah.
need the money? Are you an artist that you took it to the place where you could, but you really need that, what they call that engine? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you need like a company, the resources of a major company to kind of
Mm.
get you on the major radio stations, maybe that, for those major artists, or to
Hmm.
get your music, really, into a system around the world. So I
Yeah.
don't know that the independent route is like when
Yeah.
you're at the highest level makes sense. I mean,
Hmm.
granted, you can
Okay.
still have your own company
Understood.
and license
Understood.
the rights, but you're usually collaborating to some degree
Yeah.
with major companies because you
Understood.
just don't have, yeah.
Yeah,
So.
because not me. And people always ask me all the time because I'm trying to break the chases, the anti-industry. I'm not. I love deals. Like I work with TuneCore and all types of stuff. So I'm not that. Do you
Yeah.
feel like artists should you know the correct direct to consumer model? Do you feel like that's actually a little bit better in that sense, or do you feel like it's case by case basis? So like Bandcamp or your own website and stuff like that. Do you feel like direct to consumer is also effective as well?
I mean, I think it's an option that can be definitely a worthwhile pursuit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a choice and sometimes you don't have a choice.
Hmm.
Sometimes companies, you don't have the choice to sign with a record label. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whether you
Yeah.
like it or not. So you're stuck with the direct to consumer,
Okay.
and that's not necessary. So, but that might turn out to be a good thing. And
Hmm.
then when you're doing your thing, and then it gets to a certain level, then all of a
Yeah.
sudden the record companies start
Start
knocking on
knocking
your
the
door, and they're
door.
like, hey.
Hmm.
And then they're like, "Hey, that's great. Now let's cut a deal." And then the deal you get doesn't even make sense. They're like, all all
Yeah.
those subscribers, we own that social media platform. Oh no, we
Mm.
own. Oh no, and like, well, I don't want to give you. So the turn. Well, you want the $1 million? Now I'm going to give you the $1 million. So you got to. So like, even at
Yeah.
the higher levels, like it's maybe there's more money there, but like
Yeah.
there's more that there's on the table for them to grab too. So
Mm.
I think it's a case by case scenario,
Mm.
but I've worked with artists that have slowly done their own thing. But the problem with DIY and do it yourself is that you
Mm.
got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to
You got
do
to
it. Yeah.
create the compelling social
Yeah.
media content. You
Yeah.
gotta, they think just because you sign up with a label too, that like they just sit back and relax and everything. No, that's when the hard work begins too. So no matter which way you cut it, you
Yeah.
gotta like always put your best foot forward. I think you always gotta like
Yeah.
try to, strategically navigate to like keep things moving in a forward direction.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
That's tough, man. And then what I want to get to now, we touched on it a little bit, but I want to get into the sync licensing part of it. We're gonna wrap this up in a few. So we got
Okay.
sync licensing, right? So with sync licensing, why do you think it's so hard for like indie artists to get into sync placements? And then hold on now, it's a two-part question. So with that being said, do you feel like indie artists now or even major artists are competing with AI and companies using AI for production and music production for sync placements?
Mm. Um, it's such a quickly evolving space and area.
Yeah.
Every day you're reading a new article or reading some companies are out there doing these sorts of things. So, I mean, I think whether it's happening at the moment, let's say it's not, it
Yeah.
will, it's
Mm.
just the bottom line. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, what I think companies that use music sometimes are looking for is
Yeah.
something that fits the part of, the scene.
Mm.
And they don't care if it was created by a human or not necessarily,
Yeah, yeah.
sadly, right? And so if it's $100 versus $1,000,
They gonna go with the 100.
go for 100. But if they want the Bruno
Yeah,
Mars song in the thing,
yeah,
then
go.
you're gonna have to work
Yeah,
with, you're gonna have to get the right rights from the
yeah,
right people. So sometimes you need that one song, that that notable artist or that voice
yeah.
song, or whatever, and there's no way necessarily around that scenario. But if you're looking for something with a style, a vibe of something,
Yeah,
then yeah, I mean, yeah, technology is evolving where it's feasible, I'm sure, to do now.
yeah,
And probably and I know companies are out there doing these sorts of things.
mm,
So
yeah,
but whether or not what the actual song that was created through the technology of
mm.
was lawfully done before it was licensed is
Yeah,
another question. They're
yeah,
like, hey, we want a Bruno Mars sounding song, and now it sounds just like a song, not necessarily
yeah.
copyright infringement,
Okay,
but
that's actually my very next
isn't
question.
wow, at least I'm going down the right path.
Yeah,
We're finally
yeah.
going
But
into
we here with
we're in sync.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, what they might be learning it from,
yeah,
might be something
yeah,
that is, so
yeah,
yeah, lots of details there. But yeah, I think definitely, like, AI is
yeah,
definitely,
mm,
going to be more and more of a bigger part of the
yeah,
ecosystem, and uh, and artists and writers might be able to participate to some degree with them, and in other ways they might be, it
yeah,
will be competing and will
yeah,
be siphoning money away from them. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's a little all over the place there.
No, no, it's totally fine because I'm gonna lead it down to the conclusion of this fine interview. My buddies over at the NMPA, you know what I'm saying, they're fighting for us, the songwriters, you know what I'm saying, with Spotify and the AI voices. Now, I do want to ask the AI question about the voices, right? And I know you could go with this
Okay.
forever. The short answer.
Hmm.
So, do you feel like these companies are like infringing the voices, right? So, how is that in the future going to impact with these companies studying like rappers' voices or producers' sounds with
Yeah.
between trademark and copyright? How do you feel like it's going in the future? Do you think it's going to separate, or you think it's going to be like, okay, we could just use it?
Yeah, so that's like another right we didn't really talk about, which is sort of like closer to trademark than it is potentially the copyright when you're using someone's voice.
Mm,
That's like what they call their likeness.
yes,
Name, image, and likeness, and NIL, right? Nil rights, they call
yes,
it.
sir.
So, if it's like the Drake weekend and it's not the Drake and weekend, but they use their voice and
Yeah,
it was like a newly created song, you use their name.
yeah.
And if you have some artwork associated with it, you potentially use their image.
Mm,
And then if you're using their voice, that's more like their likeness. It's like,
mm,
it's like, hey, I know it sounds like,
yeah,
Drake and Weekend. They call them likeness rights.
yes.
And so they're kind of dealing with that now because under traditional recording contracts, it really didn't necessarily grant record companies the rights necessary potentially to take down songs, especially if it didn't relate to a particular recording that they
Mm,
were using, because they don't just have these broad rights, record companies, under a traditional contract that says,
mm,
hey, if someone's using a sound alike, just you have the right to take it down, nor do the artists necessarily want that, or they
yeah,
might want that. The point is the contract didn't provide for it.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not like so it's like the artists now have to like go out and use their personal lawyers to kind of hunt down
Mm,
these likeness issues. So
mm,
that's evolving, that area, and what the contracts and the relationships between the artists and record companies are providing there, and who can do what with it.
mm,
But that's another right that is being that's at issue, at play.
mm,
That likeness right that needs to be potentially dealt with. Um, and then there's laws around likeness rights and what happens if the
mm,
person's alive, whether they're alive or they're not alive, and it depends on state, and it becomes like a state law thing too.
mm,
So I think there's the Elvis Act in like Tennessee or something like
mm.
Memphis, like the so that's like about likeness, image, visual. So you know what I mean? It's an
Yeah,
acronym.
yeah, yeah. It's whole stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that would probably be something to be looked at. and there's a lot more of that activity going on, and
Hmm.
it's and also pressure to potentially build in laws,
Yeah.
federally to protect those sort of likeness rights. So
Hmm.
it's messy right now. I mean,
Yeah.
but and there's always something to be addressed. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
I don't think they'll just be given a carte blanche. Yeah, you can use, rights. Companies, go ahead, use it, right? Well, you wouldn't
Hmm.
want someone to use your sound
No,
without
that's
getting
why.
compensated and
That's why I
licensed,
don't.
right?
That's yeah. I'm very. Sometimes it's stuff I have recording here. I don't even want to put it out because I don't want them studying my
Yeah.
sound.
And then they'll be creating, they'll be
Yeah.
trying to recreate this interview, but
Yeah.
they'll never get it right because,
They're never.
you know, we got we got the secret sauce that we just did.
Right, right, right. And on that note, my guy Barry Heyman, we are out of here, man. My very last question. We're gonna leave it on
Uh,
that note with the future of music. My very, very
okay.
last question is this, right? You have so much knowledge, you have so much experience, you have so much to offer. You're not cheap. And with that being said, what advice do you offer anybody in trying to get into the music business today?
Okay. Well, I hate to say, I'm not cheap. I'm an investment. Lawyers are an investment. And we add a lot of value to our for our clients. All right. So,
For sure.
yeah. So it's not like and I do work, with a lot of independent artists. So,
For sure.
no, I will say, just to that point real quick, like
Yeah.
myself and others out there, there are lawyers that sometimes they work with the big firms, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that, and that's great. But like, the minimum commitment to work with them that you
Yeah.
might have to spend, it can be a lot. I
Yeah.
purposely chose to do an independent route,
Yeah.
do the whole Napster thing, because I saw that whole DIY thing coming. I saw, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now and doing
Yeah.
teaching and working with independent up and coming,
Yeah.
because I feel like these are artists and songwriters, producers, etc. Need quality lawyer, services,
Yeah.
but can't afford a $5,000 minimum retainer to
Ugh.
just bring in someone, right? And so, while yeah, granted, lawyers can be hundreds of dollars. I feel like, my rate, and just keep overhead low. I do things,
Yeah.
I've been able to offer a good value, I think, and
Yeah.
others like me offer a good value
Yes, sir.
and able to provide not just legal services, but also make connecting dots. I think
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
helped connection dots for you,
Yeah, of
and just to
course.
kind of
Yeah,
make people and
definitely.
right and just make people aware. And that's just a
Definitely.
courtesy, So we're all, we're kind of like in a team,
Definitely.
and
Yeah.
so and the work, with
Nah,
millions
well,
of thousands of dollars
I'm
to step in.
I'm gonna tell you this. Like, I appreciate you. I brag about you all the time. Like, I talk about you a lot. So I'll be like, listen,
Oh,
Barry's
cool.
my guy. I brag about you all the time.
Cool, man. Thank you.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And others, that are supporting this
Yeah.
type of community,
Yeah.
this type of community, because they're
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And the advice. Well, it depends on who you are in the industry. I mean, if you're a songwriter, producer, right? I would say, like, well, definitely, like, listen. Well, the thing is, you got to be careful who you listen to. Like you said at the beginning, there's a lot of misinformation. So I get
Yeah.
clients. They're like, hey, I did this. I signed up with there and there. And I'm like, I listened to this guy. I'm like, listen, unless you listen to like a really qualified lawyer that's been doing this for a long time,
Yeah.
the likelihood is that they're going to get like some percent right and some percent not
Right.
right.
Right. Right.
And, the part that, is a little cringing, but, so it's definitely like, you want to like, get credible, watch maybe, these sorts of things, these videos, but also make sure it's from a credible source.
Yes, sir.
And then also, like, there's the standard industry books, like, This Business of Music and the Donald Passman, All You Need to Know About the Music Business. Those are great resources, that are not lawyer prices. They're like $30-$40 investments, and you can kind of at least have access to information and make sure you're getting the current editions. They update them. Don't
Yeah.
cheap out and get the last edition or the one from 2 or 3. If you're getting the one from 2 or 3 editions ago, you're getting music business history, which maybe
Yeah.
you want, but you probably want to stay as current as possible. So you
Yeah.
definitely want to make sure you get the current edition of it. There are lots of podcasts out there that have, definitely sign up for newsletters that are
Yeah.
free, digital music news, Hypebot, music international business, music business worldwide, I think it's called. There's a lot of different resources. You mentioned the NMPA. You can follow their social media platforms. They have annual conferences. You can probably find what they're talking about, like of the moment type
Yeah.
stuff on YouTube. Their annual meetings are
Yeah.
available. So just get good follow. Make sure you connect with a lot of education, and then just be part. Get out there, go to conferences. I've seen you at conferences,
Mm.
and not just the major ones necessarily, the
The
local
small
ones.
one, local ones, yeah, local ones, yeah, yep.
Connect with your local peers, your other, if you're an artist or a songwriter, you want to connect maybe with like a producer or engineer, and then there's publicity people there that are maybe get you local publicity and promotions people, and you want to like help like a meetups and go to the, have like a healthy ecosystem of local people, so hopefully if you are in an area that has like some hub like in Atlanta or Nashville or New York or LA or Charlotte or wherever you might be, you can probably connect with a community of people. And if you're outside in the rural area, you can follow people online. You can still connect with them virtually, and then you could travel and fly to whichever conference. Like Music Biz is in Nashville. That's a big one. South by Southwest is a big one. One in New York called Mondo, Mondo. So you got to put it all together. You got to read, you got to connect.
Yeah.
And just build community and join different organizations. If you're a woman, or even if you're not a woman, there's Women in Music. If you're an artist manager, there's Music Managers Forum. So now there's a lot of these organizations that are really formal, that live online, that have a lot of these types of programming for like a pretty reasonable fee to join, like $50, $100 something a year, and you can become a member. And you have access to more resources too.
Yeah.
And so those are like, going to like the legit places, that those would be another great resource as well. So
yeah, thank you. Tips. You already know, Mr. Barry Heyman. This is my friend, my comrade, super entertainment attorney, Barry Heyman. What's your website, everything? So people got to find you. What's their website?
Yeah. So, well, Chase, thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Appreciate talking with you. I would say this is one of the best interviews I've ever had. The quality of questions you asked, the amount of information we were able to convey in this short amount of time.
Yeah,
I'm saying I don't know how you.
Actually, I had more. What's funny? I had more questions. I had more. We gotta do part two. I had a whole bunch of more questions. I didn't even talk about the MLC and all that. Yeah, I had more questions.
No, you're really honed in. Really, this wasn't just gibberish for an hour or whatever. Like, I'm serious. This is really good stuff that you touched upon here.
Yeah.
And that you asked about.
Yeah.
But people, if you want to connect with me, my website, heylaw.com, HEYLAW.com. My name is Barry Heyman, HEYMAN. I'm on social media at Heyman Law. You can find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and things like that. So on Facebook, we have that. And I also throw, if you're in the New York area, I've been throwing a lot of creative industry networking events.
Toasted Almonds.
So Toasted Almonds, we're going to be, we'll be doing one very shortly, actually next week. If people are watching live, we throw them right now seasonally. So, we have the summer one coming. We'll do the fall and the winter as well. And that one's more broad-based networking. So sometimes not artists just want to meet other artists and producers. They want to meet like a photographer, a makeup artist, a fashion designer. And that's the kind of nature of that networking event. So if that's something that's a broad-based networking, and they might need your services if you're an artist. Oh my gosh, I'm a videographer. I need some beats and stuff like that. So it's really some quality broad-based networking. You know what I mean? So you can follow Toasted Almonds on social media as well. And we just started a LinkedIn on there as well. So that's how people can follow me there.
Yeah. Once again, you already know what it is, man. My guy, Barry Heyman. This man is DJ Chase, the Pregame Party Minutes podcast right here on WDJCDB, DJ Chase Radio, DJChaseRadio.com, Spotify podcast, Apple podcast, and YouTube DJ Chase TV. And I'm out. Yeah.